Oh, another hot day. I think we're gonna have 97 today or something like that. It's 78 right now. It's the 5th of July, and it's about 7:44 in the morning here in the unholy Holy Land. Uh, Another air conditioning day. So we are having a heat wave. Let's see what they're predicting. They're predicting a pretty mild drop tomorrow, and then by Friday it's going to get back to the 91 degrees. Well, we'll see. They were saying that yesterday, and it didn't happen. So I don't give them much credence. The weather in Israel is pretty not too good. I don't think it works out so well. Okay. Um, so what's going on today? Trump gave Iran some sort of deadline, I understand, and it expired and nothing happened. More Trump. Rubio and Trump are talking about how close they are to a deal. Nonsense. Iran's not negotiating with them in the least. Nothing. It's just lies. Um, Iran is trying to suck Oman into a deal. What they want to do is they want the ships entering the Persian Gulf up north, let's call it, to go by Iran and get permission from Iran to enter, and then the ships leaving are going to go down more by the south side where Oman is and get permission from Oman to leave. So I assume that the Iranians would probably put, 50 or 100 anti-ship missiles and other things in Oman to attack ships if they don't cooperate, my guess. Oman is a dirty dog rat company. He's a lousy, stinking, worthless dictator that robs the people. It's just a horrible person like every other Gulf state. They're just terrible people. I think he's afraid. Trump is leaning on him. And Trump, and by no means, is going to respect this deal, because they're going to control who can go into the Persian Gulf and who can't, and they're going to charge tolls. So Trump's not going to go for it, whatever they come up with. The only thing they can come up with that Trump will go for it is, basic surrender. Iran surrenders, and then Trump runs the Persian Gulf anyway, but he opens it up to Iran and everything. So that's basically what we're dealing with. More stupidity. The Americans are not even negotiating with Iran. There's no negotiations whatsoever. So you can't say you're close. There's nothing. Okay? And I don't think the only if America ended their blockade of the Persian Gulf, okay, let Iran control the Persian Gulf and start charging tolls, gave Iran at least $100 billion of their sanction money, okay, Iran might start negotiations and lifted the sanctions, maybe. But that's a surrender. You see, Iran thinks they're winning, and Trump thinks he's winning. And Trump said something that I'll show you in the broadcast today that makes me think, and I'll explain it to you, that he might actually be interested in leaving the whole Middle East region. He didn't say that, but by the way he was thinking, I think he means it. But we'll cover that. Okay. And then we're going to do translations from the Hebrew New Testament, 2 of them, using the book of James, chapter 1 and 2. That ought to be fun. And I'm probably not going to spend a mountain of time on the news today. There's nothing really going on. Okay. I'm going to jump into the live stream and see how we're doing there, and put a post up. Looks like we're doing okay. Put a post up. Looks like we're doing okay. Post up. Got plenty of sound and picture. Got moderators. Thanks to the moderators. Um, Iran doesn't. I don't. When you say they don't control Oman, I don't know who you mean, America or Iran. Probably Iran, and they don't control Oman, but Oman is afraid of them because they have attacked Oman with things like missiles and drones, and they're nervous and they're scared. Okay, so they're not. Nobody really control. America doesn't control Oman, but I think push comes to shove, uh, they're more afraid of America than they are Iran. Let's see what this thing says. Okay, that's interesting. Somebody says, OC, what do you think? I have no idea what that word means. OYSSEY. Let's see if we can figure out what it means. Let's see if I get an answer. Well, AI told me that Odyssey is Odyssey misspelled, and I'm not sure of that, but an Odyssey is like some kind of adventure campaign, something like that. Odyssey, I don't know, it could be another word that people younger than me use that I have no idea what it means, and AI didn't get it either, so I don't know. Hang on a second. I've got to check these messages because that's the delivery people start up with deliveries. What this is. Okay. Could be a second. I just make sure I got it right. Let's see. It's probably gibberish. All right. Your order. Oh, yeah, it says it's been delivered. That means it'll be delivered. Yeah. I'm dealing with some real clever people. They don't know what they're doing. Okay, so that's fine. That means they'll call me sometime today. Who knows? Okay. All right, so let's get back in that Okay, let me get my post up. Let's put this up and check typos. Looking good. Let me pin this thing. Make sure it went up. I don't know why anybody would come in here and ask me a question about some old movie or TV show unless they just want to distract us. Okay, being a Bible believing site, I'm going to do some praise and we could watch people leave now that don't like God. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Now I'll say a prayer for us. My Heavenly Father Jehovah, I pray for a good uh, live stream and I can convey to the people the lies and the deceptions of all the nations around the world and their leaders, and the people would understand it. And I pray for good Bible study and Bible teaching later in the broadcast, and we all have a good time and benefit. And I thank you for this, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And in the area of prayer requests, I think there's nothing. Let's check. Not every day do we get prayer requests, so. Where are we? No, no prayer requests. Okay, let's get through the news. It's not that much to it, really. So Trump set some sort of deadline to make a deal, and it expired, and he did nothing. Um, the rhetoric that I think is all lies goes like this: Iran sets new conditions for Hormuz deal with Oman. Oh no, that's not with Trump. No, we covered that already. Um, Wall Street Journal, they'll give you lies. Says Iran initially agreed to an Oman proposal to reopen the Straits of Hormuz. Hang on, my stupid iPad jumped. but it didn't go anywhere. Um, they don't have anything worked out. The Iranians are saying Trump is trying to interfere in the talks taking place between Iran and Oman. That I'm sure of. And yeah, there really are talks between Oman and Iran. The Iranians have said it, you know. So it's real. Um, the Iranians said Trump is trying to take credit for the achievement of the talks on Hormuz, but his interference only slows down the negotiations. Somebody's trying to do evil spiritual warfare. Give me a second to fix it. So, it's just more garbage in a nutshell. Okay? Iran is trying to pull Oman into it so they could shoot at ships from both sides of the Persian Gulf. Okay? And now we're supposed to believe that they're so scared of Trump that they call him up on the phone and beg him to stop attacking. You've got to be kidding me. That's what the people really are believing. It's pathetic. And the media is at fault. I think all the media of any substance in America is shilling for Trump. They don't, they're not talking about anything. Okay? Iran is definitely hanging on to collecting tolls and controlling shipping. If they ever get this, if Trump surrenders to them, he gives it to them, they'll wait a month or a week, and then they'll tell the ships, if you're going to sell the oil in dollars or euros, you cannot pass the Straits of Hormuz. You can't exit the Persian Gulf. That's what they're going to do. And that will knock down the value of the US dollar rather substantially. I would say at least 20%, because they'll do it in the Red Sea also with the Houthis. So, it's going to hurt the US dollar and the euro, but more so the dollar than the euro. They want the Navy, the U.S. naval blockade to end. They want guarantees against future attacks. This is the Iranians. They want the sanctions gone. They want no controls over their nuclear stuff or their ballistic missiles, and they want war reparations, which were $300 billion. I would expect they're at 500 to 1,000 billion, which is $1 trillion. Then when you get over the trillions, you get into quadrillions. But it's just stupid. Trump hasn't gotten anywhere with negotiations with him. He's scared. Now we're hearing stories that his surface-to-surface missile inventory is depleted. Well, do I think that's true? Maybe. Could be. It's not depleted. It's very low. It could be. And that could be one of the reasons he's scared, but he could work with the bombs quite well too. The other nations in the Gulf states, like Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and so forth, they want guarantees that Iran doesn't threaten them again. You see, if Iran gets America to leave the Middle East, they will threaten and take over these oil states and try to form a caliphate with them, with the supreme leader Khomeini of Iran as the caliph. But they won't be able to get Israel. And Israel wouldn't care what happens to these countries. If Iran bombs them, we're not going to do anything. Trump warned of devastating strikes if there's if no agreement is reached. Well, we have gotten to a point where there is no agreement reached. Okay, the deadline has expired. So, what do we expect from Trump? Well, high probability nothing, slight probability more attacks. I would say I'd go 75% nothing, 25% more attacks. He does at times attack, so you have to be aware of that, right? Why is there a possibility of the Trump pullout from the Middle East? I'll tell you why. These are the words Trump used regarding Iran. He said, "We won. We destroyed the Iranian Air Force." What Air Force? They had something, but it was a joke. Okay. We destroyed the Navy. Again, they had some things there for real, and he did destroy them. And whatever Air Force he had, he definitely destroyed them, for sure. We destroyed their air defense systems, yes. To a great extent, he did, yes. They have nothing left. Wrong. Big wrong. Why? Well, they have probably 150 to 200 mobile missile launchers. Okay? It's a truck pulling a trailer that has a missile and a missile launcher. They drive it in a cave. They drive it down in a tunnel. They can put it in a barn or a warehouse. Anywhere you can't see it, they put it and shut it off. Then they venture out with it. The guys are ready. As soon as they get out, they stop. The systems are already warmed up probably, and they just lock the coordinates and boom, hit the fire button. Soon as that missile lifts off, you know, they're out of there. They get back in there and let's get the heck out of here before any American or Israeli jets could take off, hit those coordinates and blow the launcher up. So the idea is they got to go out of sight. So when they come out from a tunnel, they don't go 15 miles from the tunnel. They might go a few hundred meters from the tunnel, you know. And then when they go, and they're going to turn it around so they can go right back in. The plane could probably see the tracks, but what good's it going to do? The tunnel could go down, 40, 50 feet with lots of heavy concrete in the ceilings. It could go down 100 feet, who knows? And it could have a large area down there too. Or they just drive it into a cave in a mountain. You can't do anything about that. Or they just hide it in the woods. or they put a camouflage tarp over it in the woods and you can't see it. This, put it in a garage, a big parking garage somewhere, in an urban area, or put it in a office, any kind of a building. Hey, there's a lot of ways to cover it up. Okay. And now comes their 40 to 50 missile cities that are built against the bombs. And Israel said that what they tried was between 250 and 300 regular 500 pounders I believe they were 500 pounders, to um, destroy one of these missile cities. So maybe Trump could do it with 3 or 4 of these, bunker buster 30,000-pound bombs. But let's assume you got probably over 50 of these sites, okay? You might have 60 or 70, let's say 50. And you're going to use 3 on each one. That's if you could get it done. So you're going to need 150 to 200 bunker buster bombs. Does Trump have that? No, I don't think so. And they're expensive too. And that doesn't mean he's going to disable every one of them. And what's going to happen when he starts doing that is they're going to attack anything and everything in the region. Now, Trump pushes them. He can control the Persian Gulf with his warships, no doubt about it. But the Iranians can put missiles into Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, and Saudi Arabia that destroy their oil refineries and destroy their oil wells. So great, Trump, open up the Persian Gulf. Nobody's got oil for a year or 2 or 3. The trucking industry is nervous about running out of supplies with oil and fuel. So is Shell Oil Company. It's real. Trump used up a lot of his missiles. He'll use up more of his oil reserves. Then do you know how vulnerable he is for an attack? If his surface-to-surface missiles are greatly depleted and his oil reserves are run down. You think China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and Belarus and other countries don't know these things? So to say they have nothing left is stupid. They got they got naval mines in the Persian Gulf too. Iran does. Iran has, I'm sure, over 1,000 go-fast boats. So he destroyed parts of their navy. They might have 1,500 of these go-fast boats running around. They shoot anti-ship missiles. They can put torpedoes on them that jump in the water off the deck that are wire-guided or not wire-guided. They put heavy guns on there, like the equivalent of 50 cals, 20 millimeter, 30 millimeter guns. That's very dangerous to a ship. They can carry shoulder fire weapons like anti-tank missiles or stuff like that. You're in a ship and it gets hit by an anti-tank missile. What do you think happens? Doom and gloom. That's what happens. Israel-Lebanon talks kicked off yesterday in Rome. Well, I know they got a lot of Catholics in Lebanon, but I don't know how the Muslims would go nuts going in Rome with all the graven image idols. They'd go nuts up there. Just to make sure things are complicated for Trump, the Atlanta, that's in Georgia, Atlanta, big city, water system was hit by a cyber attack yesterday, and guess who the big suspect is supposed to be? IRAN. A senior Iranian official says this yesterday. Iran has no interest in negotiating with the Trump administration. Any aggressive action will be met with a decisive and firm response from the Islamic Republic. So, and then we got to deal with Trump running around, you know, broadcasting, his party line of negotiations, and he dominates the news. Trump wants himself in the world news every day, doesn't he? Tells us how talented he is. He wins a golf tournament. If they had an international liars competition on TV, Trump would maybe come in the middle. He wouldn't come in at the top. He's terrible at the lying. Where's our stimulus package? He won't even talk about that, will he? No. Why would he talk about it? This guy named Monsen Rezael, the military advisor to Iran's supreme leader, threatens to strike American vessels and forces. Yeah, and we're negotiating with them. Oh, yeah. Threats carried out. Iran launched a missile last night towards a merchant ship that was crossing the Strait of Hormuz on the southern route near Oman. If I got this right, the ship was an Indian ship. Hold on. No, that's a different ship. There was one in Yemen. That's different. Okay. So they did hit a ship by Oman, or at least attacked it. I don't know if they hit it, but they definitely attacked it. So that's another sign not of negotiations developing. It's a sign of Trump fibbing. His pants should catch on fire, huh? Now we hear from Hamas on the Peace Council crackpot thing Trump put together, another moron thing. Genocide Council, widespread Palestinian outrage following the Peace Council. So the Palestinians are not happy with the peace deal. Netanyahu is saying he never agreed to it, and there's no chance of Israeli troop withdrawal before the weapons are surrendered, or, well, they're talking disarmament from Hamas and Gaza, not storing the weapons anyplace. We're talking about throwing them in the ocean, or it's driving, bulldozers or tanks over them and crushing them and then burying them, stuff like that. Qatari foreign minister spokesperson. Now these are the dogs of the dog. These make dirty rats look dirty. No, they're worse than dirty rats. The Qataris are likely the scum of the Middle East. They're worse than all of them, and they're really good guys, right? They give Trump a $400 million airplane. He walks into that debacle. And it's real rotten people. Oh, okay. So what are we hearing from them? Hamas has fulfilled all the commitments required and the international community must put pressure on Israel to fulfill its commitment. That's not true. We never had any commitment or anything in there that was agreed to by Israel where Israel would move out of Gaza, leaving Hamas in control, fully armed. Never. Qatar is lying. And Trump had them working as negotiators. I mean, they hate Israel. You understand? And Trump loves them. So, where does Trump really stand with Israel? You know? Now, the Houthis claimed responsibility for an attack on facilities they described as a sensitive Saudi center at the Naran airport in southern Saudi Arabia. I don't know what they hit. It probably had something to do with radar and aerial intelligence or something. I don't know. Okay, there were reports yesterday. This is a true event, I believe, that the Houthis have struck an ship from India with 13 miles off the coast of Hodeidah, Yemen, with a remotely controlled suicide drone. The ship was initially reported to be sinking, and then a short time later, the members were evacuated, and then reports were coming in that the ship has gone down to Davy Jones's locker. In other words, it sank. Okay, so this to Trump is, we're stupid enough to believe that this is a sign of good negotiations. It's a sign of the Iranians thinking they can push Trump into complete surrender. That's what it's a sign of. I doubt they'll do that. I mean, they're trying, but I don't think they'll be successful at it. Okay? It's one thing to try. It's another thing to actually, get it done. Okay. The Israeli IDF, that's our Israeli Defense Forces, has seized 230 square miles. Wow, that's bigger than my front yard. Of Lebanese territory where extensive construction is underway, including a base far from the Israeli border. Negotiations with Lebanon are resuming today. So we're putting bases inside Lebanon. Why? Because the bases are going to, I don't know how they're building them myself, but Israel makes a lot of walls in sections. They're concrete pillars. They're about that thick on the higher level, about a foot. And they could be 9 inches or a foot. And, it's very hard concrete. It goes up 25 feet, but at the base, which is maybe 3 feet, 4 feet above ground, the thing is about 2.5, 3 feet thick, maybe more, maybe 3.5 feet, real thick. So if you try to hit it with a vehicle, you're going to have trouble. And they put these things into the ground. That's just the part you see above the ground. It has another part under the ground. And they have pieces of rebar, so they attach the ones next to it to each other with the rebar, which, if you're going to use rebar that's, pretty thick, it's going to be, you could use 1-inch rebar, and you probably have 5, 6 pieces that are connecting to the block on either side, 5 or 6 on one side and the other. And that means that if you knock one of these things over, you got to knock the whole domino set of them over, which you're not going to do. So if they make a base like that, which I'm not saying they do, but they might, you're not going to overrun the base. They'll put some sort of big, thick, honking door on it, and it's not so easy to attack that base, it's not that easy. So then inside the base, they probably put shelters for the guys. You don't have to go down that far. If they went down 20, 25 feet, made it out of heavy concrete down there, it's going to keep them from the missiles. So maybe to be safe, you go 30 feet or something like that. You're going to be okay. Missiles are not bombs, Oman might like the idea of working with Iran in the controlling the ships and picking up tolls, but I'm not so sure that the Iranians would let them keep the money. if they do it, they're going to have Oman's going to have a lot of trouble with the other Gulf state countries and America. And like I say, Israel's not that worried. Israel doesn't have any oil to worry about, and our natural gas comes out from the Mediterranean Sea. We're not that concerned about that. And these are our enemies. They're saying that it'll ensure the safe passage of ships. Well, the only reason there's no safe passage of the ships in the Straits of Hormuz is because the Iranians attack them. So their statements are, to be blunt, moronic. They're doing the Frank Nitti Al Capone protection racket. Hey, you need protection. From what? Well, from us. We'll protect you from us, and we'll make sure the other gangs don't protect you. So Iran's just doing an Al Capone shakedown, that's all. Al Capone was a relatively young guy when he came up. He was in his 20s when he was a big shot with the mob guys. And why was he doing so well like that? Because in the organized crime circles, what they respect is violent criminal insanity. Really, people that are insane and will go out and commit murder and mayhem and torture and stuff like that. That's what, they like. Look, if you kill somebody and they got video of you doing it, you got a problem. They could get you basically on the video. Sometimes they might be able to do it on verbal testimony of other people, but that's a little difficult because they've got to prove that the person is dead before they can convict you of it, okay? And to convict a person of murdering somebody, they need to have, what do they call it, corpus delicti. They have to have the body. Without a body, they don't have anything. So people could say, well, I saw him and I saw him shoot. Well, did they recover the gun? Probably not. Wound up in the bottom of the ocean, or it was welded into a ball of steel or something like that. So, one thing these characters will do is they'll take when you clean a gun, you get what's called a copper brush. It's a metal brush. You could also get them as stainless steel too, which is going to be more damaging to your barrel. But in any event, you put that cleaning rod in an electric drill. And even with the copper, you just sit there and keep the drill on for 3 or 4 minutes, going up and down inside your barrel. And they're never going to be able to get any ballistics on you. But I understand that those ballistics are all bogus anyway. A lot of criminal lawyers know about it and they try to argue it, but most don't. I think it's bogus, but that they can't really match it. But if you drilled the barrel out of the gun really, but you don't get the whole barrel, you just got to change the core in there. But then they might find a spent cartridge if it's not a revolver. See, if it's a revolver, there's no ejection of cartridges. Okay, they might be able to find your fingerprints on the ejected cartridge. Okay? So if they use a revolver and they just go up and down for 3 or 4 minutes with a high-speed drill, that's like sitting there with a cleaning rod for 3 days. You're going to change, but it's easy to just go to a machine shop or somebody's place of business to have a real acetylene torch and just melt the gun, or get rid of it in the ocean if you have a boat. Go out 5 or 6 miles, plop. It goes down hundreds and hundreds of feet in salt water. The safest way to get rid of it is get a torch and just melt it. And you got nothing there, and then throw the waste in a garbage can or something like that. How do they get rid of bodies? Well, they need somebody that is going to burn the body, like a funeral parlor. They burn the body and they give you an urn of ashes, right? Okay. So they could use a funeral parlor. They just put the guy in there and turn the oven on. Boom. In a few minutes, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, there's nothing but ashes. They're not going to be able to work the ashes back because you just take them and run them down the sink or run them down the toilet, and that's the end of the ashes. But I don't think you're going to get DNA out of ashes. It's just powder. I don't think it would work. But in any event, you just take care of it that way. That's the end of that. That's as easy as the cremation. That's the easiest, simplest way to do it. You got nothing left. Now you got to be careful because if they had titanium parts in their body, screws or hips or elbows or whatever, you've got a real problem there because they've got serial numbers on them, and that could be traced back. So that stuff could be more difficult to melt, but because it's probably grade 5 titanium, but it could also go in the ocean, and that's a problem too, because it's corrosion resistant. Grade 5 titanium is super corrosion resistant, so that's a problem they have. The other thing they can do is if they know somebody with a meat packing facility, maybe they make dog food or even people food, they could put the body in that and grind it up into mincemeat, and then it gets packaged, sold, and mixed in with tons of other meat. How are they going to ever figure out where it was, or but the best is just cremation. In addition, veterinarians have cremation. I don't think crematories are that controlled where they can't use them. But you never see this on TV, do you? Oh no, you don't see it. No, you don't see a bunch of cartel people or hitmen go shoot somebody and then they take them and they drive them to the funeral parlor. They throw them in and they make them into ashes and then they just throw them down the toilet and that's the end of that. They try to make you think that these people are going to use complicated procedures like put the body in a bathtub and put all kinds of chemicals in there and get rid of it that way, or they're going to take a body and they're going to go out into the woods someplace at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 of them in a Cadillac Escalade, and they're going to have shovels and they're going to go take it and dig a hole 6 feet deep and bury the person in the hole, or perhaps put some sort of chemical like lye or something on the body. And they're not going to do that because it's it could take years for that body to be decomposed, like 20 years, and even then the bones might give DNA, so that's not a test. Then they have sealing them in concrete, where they would go to a construction site where they're pouring deep concrete and throw the body in there and then bury it in concrete. That works, but it could also come back and bite them in the butt because that could be opened up. But if they grind the body up and put it into meat, dog food or whatever, or even people food, that is a good way of getting rid of it, but not as good as the crematorium. The crematorium, it just in 15 minutes, there's no body. How do you get a murder conviction when you can't produce a body? Well, they managed to do it because the courts aren't very good, because they. But if you had the right lawyer, I don't know if they would be able to do it or not. People have other things they do, like they could go out where sharks are known, okay, and they could put chum in the water, like they go to the fish market and they buy 15-20 pounds of fresh fish with the blood in the fish and everything, right? And then they got the body in the boat and they start throwing chunks of fish in the water, and before you know it, there's going to be 6 or 10 sharks circling around, right? Then you flip the body in the water and the sharks will eat the body, but not really, because they're going to leave pieces and they're not going to eat the bones. And see, shark food is basically fish that are soft. They don't have a heavy skeletal structure like a human or a deer or a horse. They don't have that. So when the shark goes to bite and there's some bone there, the shark gets a signal that this is not food for me. That's why there's really not a lot of shark attacks, okay? Navy divers and Navy SEALs and them, maybe once every 25 years they get a shark attack. They don't really attack. They look for a sick fish, if you have a woman diving and she's menstruating, that could make the shark trigger and think, oh, this fish, thinking the person's a fish because it's in the water, is bleeding, so that this is a sick fish. I'll go take it out of its misery and start attacking. That's the problem. Okay. The other thing is people pee in their wetsuits, and that can make shark thinks something's wrong, but you know, that's not. There's a famous story they tell about a Navy diver that was working down in the water. Not a Navy SEAL, a Navy diver. They're usually doing labor and mechanical stuff. They're not playing warrior, you know. So he felt something on his arm when he was working, and he didn't pay attention to it, and then he felt it go up and up, and it was a shark that uh, grabbed his arm, but it was feeling the bone, and it didn't want to let him go. And then he did something to it. I don't know. He hit it in the nose or something like that, and the thing let him go, and he was okay. Um, you know, this guy that I knew that was a Navy diver told me that he was at a base where the SEALs were. He said one day the SEALs came back and they were all carrying this big shark, and the shark had holes in it, and you know, all busted up, you know, like like he was in a war. Well, I think the shark decided to mess with the Navy SEALs, or probably didn't mess with them, probably was curious as to what they were doing and who they were and all that, and got close to them. And then they got the idea that it's time to start stabbing the shark. So they took their knives out underwater and started killing. And they eventually killed, but he was like, a 10, 12-foot shark or something. A huge, they killed him. Then they brought him back to show everybody. I imagine they might have got in trouble a little bit for that. They wouldn't get, punished, but they could have got yelled at. That, and they could have had to take a class and how to deal with sharks, because that's dangerous. Because you start attacking a shark, he goes into full war mode, And his approach could be to try to get away. That might be his reaction, or his reaction might be to try to kill the adversary, and they can kill a person easily. A big shark, I'm not talking about a 4 or 5 foot shark. They're dangerous themselves, but when you start getting into 10, 12 feet sharks, I mean, man, you're talking about a mouth, like that. All right. So we're getting more and more nonsense with Trump, but he does have a habit of some kind of delusion going on with him, and he keeps thinking that the Iranians are normal people, and he doesn't really get the idea that they're insane. There's a locust plague popped up in Russia. I don't know how big it is or how much. We'll keep an eye on it. It didn't. The story wasn't Russia's covered with locusts, no, but they're getting hit with locusts somewhere. And that's serious, because locusts don't decide they're going to live in a certain place and stay in a certain place. They're rather mobile. So they'll work in a place and they'll eat all the the stuff they could eat, and then when they finish stripping all the food, they'll move on to another area and then start cleaning it out. So they got to get rid of them, or they'll just travel around Russia. See, the more they eat, the happier and healthier they get, and then they probably start laying eggs, which makes more trouble when the eggs hatch, and it just gets worse and worse. So you got to shut it off. They don't care. They'll keep going till there's no food left. Then they die. But if they don't eat, they die anyway. Apparently these things got a high metabolism or something. I don't know. Let's check the live stream and then we'll get into the Bible. Let's see what we got here. There's a PayPal link in the chat for offerings. You'll see it. It has like a little yellowish box around it over there. It's at the bottom of the chat, the last line down. Okay. Shark fin soup. I never had shark fin soup. I ate shark 3 or 4 times in my life many, many years ago. Okay, I'm going to go into the Bible study. So, what do we think is going to go on? Well, eventually Trump is going to either pull out of the Middle East or attack Iran again, and I think he'll attack Iran again. Um, what is Iran going to do? Well, they may do a preemptive attack. We've been talking about that. And Iran, I believe, is definitely committed to the thought that if they could punish Trump in America, assassinate him or a high ranking member of his cabinet, or blow stuff up in Washington, D.C. or L.A. or something, then Trump will get closer and closer to making a deal that's more or less a surrender to help, in favor of Iran. That's what they think. That's what the Iranians think. And Trump doesn't have any feel for what it's like dealing with a country that's 80% Shiite Muslim fanatics. They don't get that. He doesn't get it. So that's why this is all going on, and it will come to an end. Either Trump does it or it just happens, but it's in Jeremiah 49, beginning in verse 34 to the end of the chapter. So it's there, it'll happen. It says destroyed by, it's called Elam, which is Iran, and it can include Iraq and pieces of Syria. And it gets destroyed so bad that the residents leave and they get scattered into every country of the world, and the sword follows them and they get cut off. Remember, 80% of them are Israel haters and America haters. These are the people that sit there and chant for years, death, death to America, death to Israel. Okay, so, all right. James chapter 1, verse 1. We're doing Salkinson, which is the reverse translation of the Hebrew New Testament from 1885, and we're doing Delich, which was in the 1880s. Delich mostly based his on Codex Sinaiticus, so he's basically going from the old original Septuagint, putting it into Hebrew. They're kind of both similar, but here we go. Verse 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Yeshua HaMashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered across abroad. The scattered abroad, it says. And Delich says, to the 12 tribes in the dispersion greeting. Okay, so they had some knowledge of the 12 tribes back then, more than we had. They had some knowledge of where they were and who they were. That's about 2,000 years ago. We don't have that today, really. We have great suspicion about who some of them are, but we're not, we don't have the proof. But it'll come to pass. So they knew more back then than we did. Now, maybe Yeshua told them these things when they were there and somebody took it out of the New Testament, or they never put it in the New Testament. Maybe Yeshua said not to put it in for their safety. I don't know. Okay, verse 2. My brothers, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. Okay. Joy when you fall into trials. I guess it means because it's an opportunity to prove yourself. Okay. Knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. Okay, testing of your faith. And Delich is saying, knowing that the proof of your faith works out endurance. No, not exactly the same thing. What it's saying is, your faith gets tested and you grow and you put up with it more. Patience means the trial lasts longer. It's not a trial of 15 minutes, it's longer. Okay. See, the Satan bot doesn't have this ability with patience and stuff like that, no. So Satan and the demons make sure they get the money, and that distracts them and deludes them into thinking they've got godliness or some sick stuff. They're so far gone you can't make sense out of them. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. See, we're waiting and waiting. We know what's going to come. Years ago, when you didn't know what it was going to be, what you were looking for, everlasting life, him appearing in the clouds, before you knew that, you were plodding along, waiting for the rapture or whatever. Maybe you knew the rapture comes at the end, at the very end. Maybe you knew that or you didn't, but something really great is at the doors and it's coming real soon, and all of us are disjointed by ourselves, not in any congregations that are worth anything. It's hard, it's a problem, okay? And that's working your patience, okay? But you got to know that he's not going to put you through something that's so bad you're going to collapse. He's not trying to break you, okay? If he wanted to break you, he'd be able to break you. He's not trying to break you. He's trying to build you up. He's getting the dross out of you, burning the dross, and that fire is hot. And he doesn't do that to Satan's children. He just let the dross build up in them, and they run around like walking shipwrecks. You go take a look at YouTube of some of these yachts in the world. There's lots of yachts you can see pictures of. A good yacht, 220 to 400, 500 feet, usually has, 3 to 5 bars in there, to serve alcoholic beverages, right? And why is that so important to them? Why do their mansions have 3 to 5 bars in it? And wine cellars. Because these people love their liquor, because they're not happy people. And when you demon toss them, they know the Bible's real and they're working with demons headed to the lake of fire. They know that. And then the alcohol consumption gets worse. They try to be functional alcoholics. A lot of them lose control, and that's why they have these very, very expensive rehab facilities they go to where they dry out. And some of them go to drugs. They'll get street drugs, they'll get doctor drugs, they'll get both. Some of them go to wine. I had a friend that had an alcohol problem. He got rid of it. He's dead now, but he got rid of it. And he would get up late in the morning. He was a lawyer, and he was working for the public defender in California. He'd get up late in the morning, and he'd have coffee, whatever he was going to do. Check email, whatever. I don't know. Take a shower, and then he would go get himself. He used to go out and get himself a sandwich or bring back some lunch. In San Francisco, there's a lot of great places to go out and get lunch and bring it back. You got Chinese food, you got Japanese food, you got Italian food, you got sandwiches, you got a million things, okay? And he would kill a bottle of wine at lunch. Then it would put him to sleep. He'd go to sleep. And then at night he would work. He would start working at night, drink coffee, and then work till 12, 1 in the morning or something like that, and then go to sleep. Or whatever he worked, he would do his work. Then, he didn't have to see clients. I don't know how you live like that, but he was doing more wine. He was maybe doing 2 bottles a day at times. He got out of it. He got himself out of it. He stopped. And he stopped altogether. But these people, they're not going to be too quick to sit down and have 4 shots of scotch. That's not them. They'll go to have lunch with their friends, and they'll have a martini or a glass of wine with lunch at the onset, and then they might have a cocktail after lunch, and that's it. And then when the work day is over, whenever their work day is over, they'll have a highball. They might go to a club or someplace after work with their friends and have a drink or 2. Then they'll go home, go out to dinner, have a meal or whatever. And they'll have a couple of drinks, but they're not going to sit there and go gug, 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 and get themselves, stupid drunk. They might do that if they've had a very, very bad, problematic day or something, like one of their factories burned down in a fire or something crazy happened. But they're what they call functional drunks. They keep it down so they could keep functioning. But that's with the Satan bot. That's a real popular theme. You know, and that's why they put multiple bars and wine cellars in their mansions and on their yachts. And on their private planes, they can't put a wine cellar, but they'll have a nice bar. They'll have 5 or 6 bottles of different expensive booze in there. Now, when they get on a plane, some of them work, some of them go to sleep, and some of them drink, you know. When they start getting to the point where they wake up in the morning and they have 2 shots of scotch to clear their head, make the headache go away and come around, and then start drinking coffee, and then start having booze during the day, they're gone, and then at night they start, and they'll have 6 or 8 drinks during the evening. That's bad. Okay, verse 5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. Now, what does Dalit say? But if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. They're in agreement. Who gives to all liberally. And Dalit says, who gives to all simply. I think liberally is better. And without reproach, and shall be, and it will be given to him. So ask for wisdom, in Yeshua's name. But let him ask. Let's do a prayer and we could all agree. Okay. My Heavenly Father, Yehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I submit to you a prayer of agreement that we all agree that all of us that are watching this video or live stream that want wisdom, that are true believers, would receive additional wisdom, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that if you're a believer. Okay, now we're in verse 6. But let him ask in faith with no doubting. Okay, you got to watch that, you see. For he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. So when you believe something, you got to believe it. Okay, when you're going to toss, it's driven by faith. You got to believe it. Verse 7. For let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. The double-minded guy, I'll ask for it, but I'm probably not going to get an answer, or I'll go through the motions. Yeah, you can pray for me as if it'll make a difference, that sort of thing. You're not going to get anything. Sometimes you might pray for something, you're not getting anything because it's not God's will for you at that time. Or what you're praying for is not God's will for you, period. So you're not going to get it. So you can't control God and you can't second guess him, okay? Don't even try. But you got to know that he does things that are for your best interest. But your best interest as you envision it can not be what he believes is in best interest for you. And he knows more than you. So your best bet is to go along with him. Painful as it may be, that is your best bet. Because it'll just be painful for a little while, and then you'll have eternity, trillions and billions of years in great happiness. He is a double minded man. Delitzsch says a double souled man. I'd say double minded man. Unstable in all his ways. Yeah. He's not consistent, stuff like that. Doesn't believe in himself and things like that. Let the lowly brother glory in his exaltation. But the rich in his humiliation, because as a flower of the field, he will pass away. So he will pass away. So the one, the espots, they don't last long, and then they're gone. You never see or hear from them again. And their continuation of their life is extremely miserable. First in the pit, then in the lake of fire. Judgment comes in between. And you could be the one judging them, or you'll at least be testifying at their judgment. And then you'll be done with them, rid of them. You won't have to deal with them anymore. Now we're in verse 11. For no sooner has the sun risen with burning heat than it withereth the grass, its flower falleth, and its beautiful appearance perisheth. Beautiful appearance perisheth. File that. So also the rich man will fade away in his pursuits. Yeah. Let's take beautiful women. I'm not picking on women, and I'll cover very handsome men too. I've seen that. Okay, so beautiful women is a problem. If the beautiful woman's parents knew the true gospel and were experienced in spiritual warfare, it would be a whole other thing. Or if she was the beautiful woman, she could be. But if she's just regular churchianity or nothing, some S-spot's going to pick her up, because the S-spot just cares about the physical stuff more than anything. And in his pursuit of acquiring wealth, it's going to be important to him to have a beautiful wife if he could get one. Okay? For the appearance, right? So what does he bait the wife in with? Well, first thing he's going to do is witchcraft her. Okay? And, she's probably not going to have any idea that she's being witchcrafted, and make her fall for him. And then he's going to pull her in and use her as a prop. Hey, look at my beautiful wife, And it could be that she likes this whole show and goes along with it. And they have children, and they like the children, and the children grow up to be Satan bots and all of that. Okay, it could also be that he leads her into Satanism, and she might stay with him, or he leads her into Satanism and she grows into Satanism and doesn't want him anymore. But let me give you the scope. He'll pick her up usually in her 20s, and by the time she's 40, her beauty has gone way down. Okay, especially if she's had children. Now, don't get mad at me because I'm going to do the reverse on this with the men. Okay, just give me a break. Okay, so now she's not, you know, what she used to be. People in the street don't stare at her anymore. That, you know, they look at her and they might say, "Wow, she used to be a good-looking woman." Stuff like that. Now she'll still be attractive, but this guy that's now rich and wealthy, and the kids are reasonably well grown, he doesn't want her anymore. He wants to start over with a new one that's beautiful and striking that people stare at. So he gets rid of her. Okay, it costs him, may cost him enough money, get her a condo and put money in the account for her. You know, give her some money, a couple of million or something, so she doesn't have to worry about financial. He's okay with that. That's how the courts work. Boom, he's rid of her. Now he goes hunting using his money, his yachts, his Rolls Royces, to find some beautiful young girl who doesn't know any better, that gets sucked into his world. Okay? Now, I'm not talking about cartel people. That's a different story. I'm talking about regular businessmen. The guy makes plastic bottles, he builds houses, he sells leather goods or whatever, right? You know, that's not a criminal. Okay, what happens to the woman? Well, she goes to the plastic surgeon and she sits there and brings in pictures from when she graduated high school or graduated college, and tells the plastic surgeon, "I want to look like this." And she's crying. This really happens. This goes on. The plastic surgeon will look at her, and she's got plenty of money, and he sees a $100,000 tab coming. So what's he gonna do? Well, he's gonna do a forehead lift on her. He's gonna cut out a piece of skin up here, pull the skin back. Her eyebrows are gonna look weird, but she's gonna have the wrinkles here are gonna be gone. Then he'll put stuff inside to get rid of other wrinkles, and he might put various chemicals in here to get rid of the jowls, like I have, you know, and you know, do a facelift on her, do a neck lift on her. Then they do a nose job. They thin and make the nose more dainty, and it makes him look younger. Then he's going to do a double bilateral blepharoplasty. He's going to fix her eyelids above and below. Then he's going to do, when he's finished with all that, you know, this isn't going to all happen in one day, you know. She's going to be doing surgery for weeks. He's going to do body liposuction on her to sculpt her body to make her look better. And if she's got a bad abdomen, he'll cut a piece, like a triangle piece of uh, the skin out between her belly button and her privates, and pull everything up and pull everything down and give her a tight, flat picture. Then, if she needs it, he'll put silicone pads in her derriere to give her the Brazil butt. You know, then they'll do a chemical peel on her face if she has the right skin. If she's, you know, white skin, like Scandinavian or something, it works better than if she's like Italian or with a tan skin or an olive skin. But they can work on that too. He can do that. And it'll also do the back of her hands to make it not look, you know, get rid of the wrinkles and stuff. And then, you know, this is probably close to $100,000 later, and she's probably gone under the knife 3 different sessions, maybe 4, with the chemical peel. And it's going to take probably 10, 12 weeks for her to recover from all of this. And then what do you got? Well, let's say she's 42, she's going to look like she's 30. Or maybe 28, probably 30. But she's not, you know, but it'll knock 10 to 15 years off her. And then what does she do? Well, she goes hunting, and she tries to find herself, or not. She might just stay single, but she's probably going to go hunting and try to find a wealthier guy, maybe older or maybe not, and get married again with a guy that got more money. That's how they do it. Okay, now let's talk about the guys. I knew a guy that was an extremely handsome guy. Okay, and he was very stuck up and nasty to women. Now, there's female witches that want a really handsome, good looking guy just to have it. You know, they like it, they maybe want to show off to their witch friends or whatever. And they'll go out and marry a non witch if they can. So, this guy was very insulting to women, and he was going to make his life after women. He got out of high school. I don't think he finished college. Now, guys were, he was okay with the guys. He didn't get mean and nasty with them. No. He got along with them. It's the women. And he was a few years older than me, so in my clique in New York, I wasn't in his immediate clique, but we all grew up near each other and I knew what was going on. He died at a very early age. What I believe happened is one of these female witches got really, put down by him, and she looked bad, and she cursed him with something or dragged him into some. I don't know exactly what happened, but somehow he died at a very early age, not expectedly. So I couldn't remember what he died from, but you see this too, okay? Um, there was another kid in the neighborhood. They called him Beak. He was 6'2", 6'3". It's a big guy. He was a nice enough guy. And he took it upon himself to be a bodybuilder, and he put all the muscles on him and everything else. And he watched his weight, and his mother was not exactly right. She was divorced and dating men and sleeping over at different guys' houses, and he would invite people to come over to his house when his mother wasn't there and give him $1 or $2 for the fun, and they would go up there and take drugs in his house. He had a lot of trouble, the guy. He had a bad upbringing, and he was telling everybody how committed he was to make a living finding some rich girl. Well, that usually doesn't work, because some rich girl is more or less maybe interested in going out with him once or twice for, because she's attracted to him, but she's going to marry the money, you know. Now, I want to tell you, there's a lot of Satan bots that won't marry a non-Satan bot, okay? There's a whole lot more of those than there are Satan bots that'll marry a non-Satan bot. They prefer, a lot of them just don't want to have it. They want to marry another Satan bot, and they don't want to put up with somebody that's not a Satan bot. So you get a lot of stuff like that. So people that put their stock in their appearance, it's just for a brief period of time, like the sun rises and dries up the grass. Well, you dry up, you get old. People don't realize it when they're young, Usually when, the female or the male is 18 or 20, they don't, now, when you get into Hollywood, yeah, those guys have access to confused, bewildered, misdirected young girls that come down there and try to get into Hollywood as children, and they'll recruit them, I knew a woman, I don't know if she's still alive, she married to a friend of mine. I know my friend is dead. I don't know if she's still alive. She's very old if she is. She was a child actor in Hollywood in the studios. I think in the 40s, something like that. And I mean, she'd be about 100 right now. You know, she was very old. She was older than my friend. So she, it might have been the 30s that she was active there. She was a child actor, and the studios picked her up, so she would be working in the studios, and then she would go home at night. And she said that what they used to do is inside the studio gates before they went to the street, the people that work there, producers, directors, movie stars, guys that made the sets, the costumes, the writers, all of them would be coming out, and the kids would hitchhike, um, and the people would pick them up. And it's where you going, you know, they were nice to them because when they were inside the gate, they knew these kids worked for the studio. So they would give them rides. And she used to get rides like with Errol Flynn, people like that, they'd give them rides, you know. And then she wound up working on cruise ships as a singer. And then what she did is she married different men. And I don't know, but she must have had 4 or 5 husbands die. And she kept getting inheritances, and then she got wealthy. Uh, and she tried to get back into motion pictures or television, and she never got anywhere. She was trying to get in as an older person, and it just, they didn't, you know, didn't work for her. Never happened. So did she marry guys and then try to kill them and then get the inheritance? I think so. I think so. They, a lot of times when the woman's younger, they drive the guy on. You know, they'll try to get the guy fat, give him bad food, and then they try to, if the guy's blood pressure goes up and he has heart trouble, they'll start with the long sexual sessions and try to get him into a heart attack. I'm talking, people have explained this to me. You know, they do things like that. The Satan bot is garbage. You gotta understand that. You know, they're terrible. They have no limitations. They're psychiatrically crazy because they don't have any conscience. They take pleasure in harming people that did nothing to them. You know, that, you know, they're crazy. Okay. All right. That's why the world is such a bad place to live. Okay, so the rich man will fade away in his pursuits. Yeah, the rich guys, what happens with them eventually, they run into their health problems. They build up their wealth, and then they try to do all they can do, you know, to keep themselves going. And some of the really wealthy will have, you know, if they get bad off, they'll put medical equipment, real medical equipment in their house. They'll have a medical bed. They'll have an RN there 24 hours a day. She's probably making today, I don't know, 100 an hour. They don't care. And a doctor will come probably twice a week and check them. And they got all the electronic monitoring equipment. He's got oxygen. They keep resuscitation equipment and all kinds of craziness, you know. So it's basically like being in a nursing home, but it's in his house, you know, and he might have a 15,000 square foot house. So he's got his cook making food, and, you know, but he's still, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, now we're in verse 12. Blessed is the man who endureth trial. See, God is never going to test you beyond your capability. Endureth trial, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love him. That means you live him forever in heaven. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God, for God cannot be tempted by evil. Let's read Delich. Let no one say when tempted, I am tempted from God, for God is untempted by evil things, and he tempts no one. See, God's not tempting you, you're being tempted. You see whatever your temptation is, you see it could be for some alcohol, for others sex, for others you see this yacht, oh, I'm so jealous. Or you see Rolls Royce, oh, I'm so jealous, or something. What is tempting you? What is it? You want to go to a card parlor, you want to go to a bar, you want to go to a strip joint. What is it? There's something tempting you, but you're being tempted. It's not that, God did it to you on purpose. He's not going to do that. Let me see what this is. Probably my wife. Nope. Yes. Boker Tov. Okay, Anibo, I go now, okay? Okay, bye. I gotta go get the package out there. Hold on. This'll be rather quick. I believe she seems to say he was here, so. not a hamburger deliverer. No, it wasn't a meat lover pizza. It was packages. Okay. Sorry, the guy took a longer time. He apparently called me when he was not here, coming here. All right, I'm sorry. That's life in Israel. Okay, so the temptations is not from God. God's not putting it out there for you. You're finding your own temptations. Now, will the enemy try to tempt you? Sure. Through the people that serve the demons and the demons themselves, if they can, if you're communicating with them, which I hope you're not. Verse 15, then when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. And that's why they got all the porn on the TV and on the internet, the beginning of sin. Because you get tempted, you get desire for that, and then it progresses to the other thing, which is going to ultimately mean fornication or adultery. That's one thing. You know, look, a lot of the Hollywood productions in the last, 20 years talk about people communicating with the dead. You know, like the dead people appear in their house and they talk to them and stuff. They miss the wife, they miss the husband. You know, that never happens. You know, they're just making you think it'll happen. Okay, to try to drag you in or something like that. I don't know. If you're going to give the demons a chance, they'll talk to you and make believe there's somebody that's dead. You know, that's what the fortune tellers, the gypsy, so-called gypsy fortune tellers do. You know, with people, they contact the dead and they make a woman think they're talking to their husband, but of course the husband is communicating through the fortune teller. You know, it's nonsense. Do not be deceived, my beloved brothers. Every good gift, and he was like me, he said, don't be deceived. I'm doing that all the time. Don't be deceived by another Jesus, another gospel, evil spirits coming through as an angel of light, you know, as a messenger of light. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. Satan has no gifts that don't have strings attached with calamity as the end result. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. Verse 18, of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, having willed it, he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a certain first fruits of his creatures. Now Salkinson is word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. So back then there was the first fruits. When they got the Holy Spirit, I guess that's when it would start. Therefore, my beloved, well, it started, Yeshua was teaching them before the gift of the Holy Spirit was given corporately to the people, he taught them, but he was only teaching the disciples who became the apostles. You know, there was like 12 and then 11, and then Paul came in and became 12. But they never expected to see Paul in there because he was persecuting them. You see, when you try to second guess God or you try to predict what God's going to do, you're usually going to fail. I'll bet none of them ever thought God was going to bring some guy in like Paul. But they went in faith and they said, if God did it, it's okay. They were a little nervous that, maybe he was going to turn them over to the rabbis or something. But no, they trusted God, it would be okay, and it was. Therefore, my beloved brothers, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Yeah. Think things through before you go forward with them. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. The wrath of man does not produce. So you're not going to get more righteous by being, running around in anger and stuff like that. Therefore, lay aside all filthiness, put away all filthiness and delish, and overflow of wickedness. Malice is what he says. So, lay aside all your filthiness, get rid of it, and no, wickedness or malice or wanting to do evil, and receive with meekness the implanted word which is able to save souls, to save your soul. So the word can save your soul. So he's telling you to get, to lose the evil. Don't be running around with the evil stuff in you. You're not going to get anywhere with that. It's just going to mess you up. But be doers of the word. But become doers of the word. Yeah, you can't be, your couch potato prophecy student. That's not it. They just sit around, oh, look what I know, and they don't do nothing good. They just absorb and they take, they don't give. That's not a believer. But be doers of the word and not hearers only. See, that's what the prophecy couch potato is, a hearer. The Lord loves a cheerful giver. They don't give. Don't muzzle the ox while he treadeth the grain. Oh, they do that. Because they're covetous. They're not believers. They don't have any traits of being believers. Okay? Be doers of the word. They're not doers of the word. They're not going out and trying to help anybody or help anything except themselves, and not hearers only. They're hearers of the word only. That's what they exactly are. They don't do anything with it except try to glorify themselves. Deceiving yourself. They're deceiving themselves. They're not saved because they have no good fruit whatsoever. From what do they have good fruit? Nothing. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural race in a mirror. What? Let's read Delitzsch. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, this one is like a man considering his natural face in a mirror. Oh, so he just watches himself. Okay, okay. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what manner of man he was. Yeah. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty, now that's not Moses' law, perfect law of liberty, and that's grace, you're under grace, you know, and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does. Yeah. God will bless him. If anyone, you see, they don't understand that God will bless them for their obedience and stuff like that. Not just listening to the word, but actually walking it and following it, because they're not believers. It doesn't register with them. Covetous, the root of all evil, runs deep with these people. If anyone among you thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this one's religion is useless. So he's saying, if anyone among you thinks he's religious and does not bridle his tongue, in other words, he's saying bad stuff. What comes out of the mouth comes from the heart. He could be backbiting, telling tales about other people, or lying, or, cursing, or yelling and screaming. His religion is useless. Pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their trouble, to visit them. And to keep oneself unspotted from the world. Unspotted from the world is you don't start taking on the ways of the world, the ways of the unsaved. You don't do that. Okay, James chapter 2, verse 1. My brothers, do not hold the faith of our Lord Yeshua HaMashiach the Lord of glory with respect of persons. For if there cometh into your assembly, or this says synagogue or assembly, not church. The church word's not in the New Testament or the Old Testament. They manufactured that. If there comes into your assembly a man with gold rings in fine apparel, and there comes in also a poor man in filthy clothing, and you pay attention to the one wearing the fine clothes and say, sit here in a good place, and say to the poor man, stand there or sit here under my footstool. You see, the rich guy comes in and they want an offering from him or money, or they're impressed. So they're still in the world. That's the ways of the world, okay? That's the ways of the world. Have you not shown partiality among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? See, that's evil thoughts, favoring the rich. Now, the rich in these days don't get rich, by, serving the Lord normally. It does happen occasionally, but they're getting rich by serving Satan, And now it could happen, God could make somebody rich, but it's not all that common. But when we start the next age, then we're going to be rich and the sinners aren't. You'll see. See, right now, people don't see we're a new creature in Christ Yeshua, and Yeshua HaMashiach, but they don't see it. When we get the new heart, when we get the law in the heart, and we get a heart of flesh, and we all know Him from the least to the greatest, well, then we're starting to manifest as the children of God. It gets more so down the road, but then will come the wealth with it also. God's children are not supposed to walk around in rags and poor, but in this time we do, because God has turned away from Israel for the punishment, and that means the other people are punished too. He's not going to punish Israel and favor the other believers. So the other believers are in Israel. If you're a believer, you're in Israel, so you're being punished. But now we're in recompenses. We're not in the punishment stage. Listen, my beloved brothers, has not God chosen the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom which He promised to those who love Him? Isn't that what I was just kind of saying? Yeah. Look, the next phase after the everlasting life is you're in New Jerusalem, and there the streets are made out of see-through gold. So how rich do you want to be? I mean, And the evil ones can't get in there. They don't go into New Jerusalem, as far as I understand. Um, they're outside the gates. But you have dishonored the poor man. Do not the rich oppress you and drag you into the courts. The courts are made for the rich. It's not a fair court system in any country in the world. It's not fair. Israel doesn't even have jury trials. Do they not blaspheme that noble name by which you are called? Of course they do. Because they're grateful to Satan, because why? Satan gets them wealthy. That's what they care about. He who dies with the most toys wins. They're in a trap. In their minds, they don't want a God that doesn't get them rich. They don't want a God that tries their faith. They want a God that accepts them no matter how evil and rotten they are, and caters to the evil and rotten. Verse 8. If you really fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, you do well. But if you show partiality, you commit sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. Delich is slightly different. If you respect faces, you work sin, being reproved by the law as transgressors. Maybe he's saying, if you pay favor, faces, you pay favor to beautiful women and handsome men, you treat them differently, then you're committing sin. So you got to be fair with people, right? You don't treat the rich better or the beautiful or the handsome better and the others not, you know. For whoever shall keep the whole law and yet stumble in one point, he has become guilty of all. That's Moses' law, I believe. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. Now, if you do not commit adultery, but you do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. If you don't do anything in the law, you're a transgressor of the whole law. But you can't fulfill the law at all because there's no active priesthood, there's no altar, no temple, no tabernacle, no offerings, no sacrifice, nothing. So if you break one piece of the law, one section, you broke it all. And everybody's breaking it all for about 2,000 years. That's why the believers are under grace. Verse 12, James 2, verse 12. So speak and so do as those who will be judged. Okay, verse 12. So speak and so do as those who will be judged by the law of liberty. That which is, so speak and so do as those about to be judged through the law of liberty. The law of liberty is not Moses' law. Eat not, touch not. That's Moses' law. Liberty, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, verse 13. For judgment is without mercy to the one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Judgment without mercy to the one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. So you try to be merciful over, you don't, just hammer people. What does it profit, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? Okay, verse 14. What does it profit, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body. What does it profit? In other words, you're going to go pray. Someone has no clothes, no food, and you just pray for them where you could help. Now, I had offers from several people that were talking about the homeless ones and saying that, where are they? Are they in my country? Are they near me? I could maybe do something to help put them up. And I said, no, I didn't see a match there. Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. So faith without works is dead. Again, your couch potato prophecy or Bible student that doesn't do a thing, never gives offerings to help the work, never preaches, never helps anybody, just absorbs the stuff and goes out and caters to their flesh. Might have a nice job, might provide for his family, but you know, that's not the real believer. But someone will say, what did when they were one of the apostles or disciples was talking about Yeshua and his family, said, "Who is my family?" And you know, the believers are his family. Those are his long-term family for eternity, not some flesh person who may fall away or may not. I don't know, but you know. But someone will say, "You have faith, and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works." You see, saying you have faith is not the same thing as displaying it. Remember, a lot of people will come to you, false believers and just non-believers, and do self-proclamation. They'll tell you how great they are. That's meaningless, okay? Where's the evidence of their works? Now, you see evidence of evil people's works. They preach the other gospel, the other Jesus, and they thrive, and they're millionaires, and they make lots of money, and they go around preaching the false gospels. And, you know, well, that's evidence of their faith in evil. Yeah, and they'll be punished for it. You believe that that's their bad fruit, and bad fruit only comes from a bad tree. Good fruit only comes from a good tree. You believe that there is one God. You do well. Even the demons believe and tremble. The demons tremble, you know, with Jehovah, about Jehovah, but the servants of the demons don't, because they're in a delusion. But do you want to know, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead? If you can't produce the works, your faith is dead. Was not Abraham, our father, justified by works when he offered Isaac his son on the altar? He was getting ready to kill Isaac. He felt God would resurrect Isaac from the dead. Do you see that rather was working? Do you see that faith was working together with his works? And by works, faith was made perfect. And the scripture was fulfilled, which says, Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. And he was called the friend of God. There you go. You see then that a man is justified by works and not by faith only. You got that? You don't see the works, they're not there. You know, that's sort of like if they don't work, they don't eat. In the old days where they were, you know, supplying each other with food and stuff like that. If they don't work, they don't eat. Now, the work is evidence of the faith because they want to help prosper the community of believers. That's a good fruit in that case, okay? Not everybody is, an apostle or a prophet or a pastor or an evangelist or a teacher. Not everybody is one of those, okay? People have different ways they contribute. Likewise, was not Rahab the harlot also justified by works when she so what happened to I think my iPad did its thing and moved. I'll get it back. We're back. Okay. You see, this is verse 24, James 2. You see then that a man is justified by works and not by faith. Likewise, was not Rahab the harlot also justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, faith without works is dead. Okay. All right, let me go in. That's the end of the chapter. So I think that was a decent Bible study. And we'll finish the book of James. I'm not a retired Mossad guy. Okay. I don't see anything I need to do. No questions, no prayer requests. Okay, so I hope you got something out of that, and um, I'll get a prayer going for us now. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem, Yeshua, HaMashiach, I pray for me and my wife, all the true believers, and our households, that we would be safe, secure, happy, healthy, and whole, and have your shalom peace. We would have your strength, stamina, and endurance. Your healing and recuperative power would flow through us and heal us as needed. And for our animals and pets and ourselves, we would all be safe, secure, happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray that those of us that need shelter or housing get it. Those of us that need to find a job get a good job. Those of us that need to get on welfare, like me, get on it. Those of us that need clients and customers, get those. Self-employed people, you know. And I pray we all have adequate money and then some extra. And I pray we know and understand the scriptures better, and that I could do better live streams and videos and teach the scriptures better, and be able to make the people understand more the deceptions of the enemy. And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And if you're a believer, you can agree with that. Now we'll do spiritual warfare a little bit different. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, regarding me and my wife and all the true believers and their households and families, I loose any unclean spirits out of any of these people. They must go immediately and never return. And I loose off and out of any of these people any evil spiritual warfare. It is null and void, of no value, no effect forever, and shall never return in the same or even in a similar fashion ever. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this also. And I just want to remind you that this is, offerings driven. That's how this works. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm out. And I hope you got something out of this. Thanks.